All right, if you take a look behind me, this is where I take our product pics at. And you might be saying, studio lights, I don't want to spend money on studio lights. And good news, you don't need to. Only reason I'm using these is because I'm also an adjunct professor, meaning I teach business analysis and marketing for universities like Penn State, Baldwin-Wallace, Southern New Hampshire University. And I do that from home, from my home office. So those times when I'm lecturing, a lot of times I'll use these lights, especially if I'm teaching at night, right, to get a good picture, especially if I'm using illustrations. And I found that they look really good for, or they work really good for product pics as well. So that's why we're using them. But all you need is, you know, those little utility lights, those like dish lights with the bulb inside that you can get from Home Depot or Lowe's or your hardware store. Those are really all you need. That's what I used to always use before. And you just take two of them, put them on either side, and it does basically the exact same thing. So let me show you a couple techniques for taking photos with just your smartphone. And this works whether, you know, it's an iPhone, whether it's a Samsung, as long as it's a smartphone and it has a camera on it. And I would say it's, you know, 2006 or so or later, you'll be fine. Okay. That's really all you need. So let me show you a couple things there. All right, so when you first begin, there's a couple things that you're going to want to do. First, unless you're outside, you want to make sure that you have light coming from either side, okay? What that's going to do is that's going to make sure that you don't have any shadows, all right? And you can check because right here, you can see that there's no shadows on that. So I don't have the best eyesight, so if you're like me, that's just a real easy way to check, right? Position your lights, hold your hand over, and then look to see if there's any shadows on either side. If you set it up like this, there won't be. And again, you don't need to have studio lights like this. You can get utility lights and just put one on either side with a high watt bulb and just angle them in like that. And that's going to make the light go in the center, but without creating any shadows. Shadows will ruin your product pics. So let's grab a couple of these. And these are hair bows. These are great because these are made by our customers. So it's always really nice to see what happens, you know, when the clays leave here, what do they turn into, right? And they turn into just incredible bows, incredible designs. We've seen them as magnets. We've seen them as, I mean, the badge creators, the reels. These are really cool. These are really popular. So let's just go through and we'll take a couple shots here. And again, this isn't hard. This is pretty easy stuff. And there may just be some things on here that you haven't tried before or you don't realize. So let's take a look. And again, I don't need to have all this open. I just have one small space right here. And I'm going to make sure there's enough room around your photo as well. So when you take your photo, make sure you leave some border around, because if you want to crop, or depending how you're going to use that later, you can always cut it off. But if you get it too close, well, then it's too close, right? So leave yourself a little bit of room. It's one of the things I learned the hard way when I first started taking product pics. So I take my advice on that one. So, and again, you can do this. This is an iPhone, right? Whether you have Samsung, whatever your brand is, it's going to be pretty similar as far as the steps that we go through here. All right. So if you're taking photos, I usually always just take it vertically. Now, if you're doing a video, obviously sideways, right? But for photos, doing it straight up is perfectly fine. And sometimes I'll angle it too, depending what I'm doing. Right now, we're just going to do it flat. Okay. This is what you call a flat lay. So, all right, went ahead and took my photo, right? As you can see, you see how there's plenty of room around there? That way you're able to crop that as you need to, and you don't always realize how much room you're going to need until later. And then it's too late if you haven't left any border, all right? One other thing, now depending how this comes out, most of the time, see, the photo looks good, but it's not exact. So you may have to go in here and play with it a little bit and just adjust this. Like right now I went to vivid, but I'm all the way down on the other end. So this is right now about 13%. Now you see, look at that. That's nearly identical. Then I'm going to save that. Okay. And that's what you want. You don't ever want to try to take a picture and make it look better or make it look different than what you have, because then your customer is going to be unhappy, right? They're going to think it's a certain shade of green. They get the product in the mail and it's like bright green, right? They're not going to be happy with that. So all you want to do when you're doing this isn't even really editing, but anytime that you're improving or adjusting a picture, you want to make sure that it's exactly what it looks like in real life. Okay, that's the whole purpose of making adjustments, because the phones don't always render an exact replica, right? You can say, well, that's not the same shade. So you may have to adjust to get it to write the shade that you need. Okay, but always try to make it exactly what is the same thing in real life should be what's showing on here for your customer. Now, if you need room, now you can go back in and you can edit this, you can crop this, you can do a whole lot with it. You've left the room around, okay? Let's do another one. Now, if you're doing them flat like this, it's important that your phone is level. Now, I've done tons of these, thousands of these, right? So I can tell right away if it's not. But maybe at the beginning, you might want to actually angle this up. Instead of having it flat, have it on a little bit of an angle, because then you don't have to worry about that. Now let's go in and take a look at that. See how level that is, right? Even though it's flat. And this one here, see, this one I don't have to adjust at all. This yellow is the same yellow that's right there. So no adjustment is needed on that, all right? And this is the same regardless of whatever colors you're taking. Maybe sometimes I've noticed with red, you need to adjust a little bit. Sometimes with a dark blue, you need to adjust a little bit, but you'll get a feel for things too. The more you do these, the better you're gonna get at them. And again, just make sure your lights, right, are coming from either side and they're almost like coming down in a point. You see how that points together right there. Now, we're also gonna go outside because I've been able to take a lot of really good product pics just from natural light. So let's go out there. I'm gonna show you a couple techniques for when you use natural light. All right, natural light is some of the best light that you can take product pics with. Now, right now, I'm not able to actually take some. If you can see, yeah, you can kind of see the shine off my bald head, right? But the sun's right over here. So we've got a little bit too much sun for what we need right now. What you would like to have is you'd like to have a little bit of overcast, and you want to make sure that if you've got a little bit of shade, that's fine, but you don't want to position yourself. I've got a bunch of trees and everything out here, and you might think that's a great place, right? Do a setup underneath the trees. What happens is you get shadows from the leaves. The reason I know that is because I've tried that. So I'll save you the effort there. Don't do that. But when it's a little bit overcast, that's perfect. You can literally come outside, put your backdrop, whatever you're using for your background, just like I had in there, the white glitter, right? Bring it outside on a table or even on the floor is fine, and go ahead and take your pictures. And some of the best times are not early morning, but I would say between maybe 10 o'clock and 1 o'clock seems to be a good amount of time because the sun's either center or not quite center. Evenings, I haven't got that great of pictures in terms of product pics. Maybe it's good for taking wildlife, I don't know. But for product pics, seems to be the first part of the day is I've always gotten better pics. And now being here in Pennsylvania, we have rain a lot of the time. So now I've just, most of the product pics, I do them from the inside now, because then I can always get it the same every single time. But ideally, if you live in like California, where I used to live, I would be taking them outside. So depending where you live, use that natural light when you can. As you can see, there's no lights, and it comes out really good. All right, so that's a little tip as far as natural light goes. Now let me show you one more thing and then we're gonna wrap this up. All right, so that just about wraps us up. I had one more thing I wanted to share with you today. The bulb, okay? This here is a bright bulb. It's a white light. This here is only 45 watts, but you gotta remember, when I'm using the studio lights, and so there's 5 of these in each lamp. Okay, if you're using the single ones that you might get from a utility light, say at a Home Depot or Lowe's, I'd recommend probably 100 watt or more. Okay, but make sure it's a white light. Don't use the warm lights. I like warm lights around the house, but you don't want that when you're taking a product pic, because it's gonna make the colors not come out as true as they would be otherwise. All right. So remember, you don't need to do a bunch of editing. You don't need to do all these different things. Once you get it on the computer. Just take good product pics from the beginning. That starts with the right light, starts with no shadows, and starts with leaving yourself some room around the edges so that you can crop. A lot of times you may have to make that into a perfect square, or maybe you have to make it so it fits, the right size for Facebook or Insta or wherever you're gonna post your picture. All right, so I hope that was helpful. And next week we'll do another tutorial on something else. But for now, just go and do your product picks. This is one of the easiest things you can do to increase your online sales is you can make better product picks. Have a great day.